The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we're coming to you live from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California in this almost mid-July heat. We're going to be with you for the next 2 hours talking about autism from a 360-degree perspective. It is Wednesday, and on Wednesday we generally start with Ask Dr. Doreen. Unfortunately, we do not have Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh this morning, I know. But we have the next best thing. We have Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh recorded. We're going to show you an episode that's from, I believe, 1.5 years ago, and it's a good one. I handpicked it myself, and it's got a lot of good things that you guys were asking questions about already this week on the feed. So we're going to have you see that. And then in our second hour today for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy, my friend Nancy Allspot Jackson is back in the house. And she's going to be joining me. We're going to give you some in the news, some very interesting things, and we've got a couple of really incredible guests. First of all, we have the unicorn. For those of you who have been friends of the show for a long time, Dr. Linda Copeland. We call her the unicorn because she is both a developmental pediatrician and a board-certified behavior analyst. What you say? Can somebody be both of those things? Can that possibly be? Yes. Somebody is. Dr. Linda Copeland, I believe, to my knowledge, she's the only one. That's why we call her the unicorn. One of our viewers dubbed her that, and it stuck. We call her the unicorn. She's going to be answering questions about sleep and telling you about a sleep study that she's involved with right now that's really incredible, because you can work really hard to get your health in good condition. You can get the best behavior analyst on your team. You can have the best team of therapists working with your kiddo and have all of those pieces there. But if you're not sleeping or your kiddo is not sleeping, progress is going to grind to a halt or at least be affected, right? So we got to get the sleep portion on board for everybody before we can get a lot more accomplished. So Dr. Copeland's going to be here with Nancy and I to talk about that, and that's coming up in the second hour. I want to remind you of a couple of things. That this entire program, even when and by the way, I digress. I forgot to tell you about our other guest. Alex Plank was with us yesterday. We recorded an interview with him at the wonderful Autistic Health Conference that he was a part of yesterday, and we were there with him and with a special guest. So that we're going to be joining you with that, and there is a possibility, cross your fingers, that Alex is going to be joining us live from the floor of the Autism Society of America Conference, which is just getting started today. So we're hoping that happens both today and tomorrow with Skype connections and conferences and internet, and meetings and things. It's a little bit catch as catch can, but we're trying to bring it to you. But we do have that interview that we recorded at the other conference yesterday. So that's all going to be coming up. But I started to say we want it to be interactive. Even when we're showing you a taped piece, we're still here in the studio and we want to hear from you. So I want to remind you that you can interact with us, and Samantha's going to show you some of the different ways how, while I remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com. When you go there, many things to do. Please click on the triangle that's on the computer screen to start the show playing. It will either start the live show playing or the most recently recorded live show. If you want to go back in history, lots of ways to do that. There's a memo tab in the upper left-hand corner that will show you the 100 most recent episodes of Autism Live. If you want to go further into the archives, I really want to recommend going to iTunes or to YouTube to do that. We do have a new project that we're working on for you to be able to search by question. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that later. But lots of videos, lots of experts, really a lot of incredible things. Also on our homepage, we have what we call the live feature. It's the series of white boxes, and one of them says your question. If you put your cursor in that box, all you have to do is type and hit enter. You don't have to log in, come up with a username. You don't have to identify yourself as being other than a robot or do the hokey pokey. And there's no credit card involved either. We don't know who you are. We don't know where your bank account is, and we don't want to know. Isn't that refreshing? So, but if you do include, when you type something, information about the closest major city to you and about how far away it is, that helps us to know what resources might be available for you in your portion of the world, and it helps us refine the answer that we give to you. So that is useful information. But honestly, we just love talking to you, and you can talk to us on Facebook Live. You can talk to us on YouTube. There are lots of ways of getting a hold of us. And if you have a particularly long question, if you want to email me directly, you can send it to s.penrod, P-E-N-R-O-D, at autism-live.com. All right, having said that, first up, we're going to show you an oldie but a goodie. This is Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet from about 1.5 years ago, I think. I know I picked it, but there was 2 I was choosing between, so I think it's 1.5 years ago. And a lot of really good questions that she answered during Ask Dr. Doreen. Here it is.
Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism. Doreen Graham-Pichet.
Dr. Graham-Pichet.
Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet.
Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen. All right, we're going to jump into some questions here that you guys have written in. Let's start with, what's the best way to teach sight words to a struggling reader? She is 7. And
Right.
thanks.
Right. Yeah, so, I mean, I have a lot to say about reading programs, and it's a little bit difficult to answer this question. You can learn a lot about teaching sight words if you go to Skills. We have a whole program on this in the Skills website. So you would go to www.skillsforautism.com. There you go. Thank you, Shannon.
There we go. I was
go.
trying to get it in the shot. Skills made this for me because I could never remember all of the information, and
That's
we refer
hilarious.
to it a lot because it's a great thing.
Yes.
So 877-975-4559 is the phone number that you can call, or as Dr. Graham-Pichet was saying, skills for F-O-R autism.com.
And I think Skills with the number 4 autism, it works as well. But so just get on Skills. There is a section for reading under the academic curriculum, and that will guide you. There's a lot of different things you can do with sight reading. There's many really good reading programs out there which are separate from, a more comprehensive ABA program. But at 7, I think it's pretty important to figure out what you're doing. Because you're looking at reading, and this is a purely academic skill, you really should get your school district involved. This is an issue where you need an IEP, and you need to have them produce goals for you. You can certainly use Skills to pull out goals, and Skills is often very useful for that. But it is important to get your IEP in place because your school should be supporting you in teaching this skill.
Absolutely. And I have to say, because I'm a big Pinterest fan, that if you go on Pinterest, there are all kinds of creative things for teachers that parents can use too. My favorite one for sight words, it's crazy. And I just was thinking about this the other day because we got something in the mail and it came with a whole bunch of bubble wrap. And bubble wrap is about to be gone forever.
Oh
but
my gosh.
my son had such a good time popping. He was like, "Can I pop the bubbles?" And there is a whole thing on Pinterest about taking sight words and writing them on the bubbles, and they only get to pop it if they can
read it.
Clever.
Very clever.
Pinterest. It's really good for things like that. We have a Pinterest page for Autism Live too. You can go and check out. I put things on it all the time that I think are just way clever.
That's awesome. I didn't know that.
I
love Pinterest. Pinterest is amazing.
Isn't it so much fun? We cut it out of the interview that we did with Temple Grandin in the car. It started with me talking about Pinterest, about her, and me saying that I can lose 2 hours on Pinterest like that, as if I've been taken away by wolves and I don't know where I've been. And then, but Kelby fortunately cut that part out. But we start the interview with me saying to her, "What do you do that you can get lost for 2 hours?" Because I was talking about Pinterest. Anyway, all right, moving on. Hi, Shannon and Dr. Doreen. I need help with my 5.6-year-old son. He won't sleep in his bed any night. His bed is in my room because there's only one bedroom in my apartment. He falls asleep in his bed, but every night climbs into mine. I take him back and stay a few minutes with him in his bed because he says he's scared. If I leave his bed before he falls asleep, he'll start saying, "Can I come into your bed?" and whining. There's a little night light in the room, but he's still scared. He'll start saying things like, "What's that over there?" Any shadow in the room, he'll ask, "What is that?" and sounds, and looks really scared. I feel really bad for him since he's little. I know he's afraid of the dark. That's why I have a nightlight in the room. Does not matter how many times at night I take him back to his bed, he still comes back. And in the morning, we're both really tired. Please help me. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, that's so tough. I can understand that. So I think what you do, and you're in a unique situation in that your son, you have one bedroom and your son needs to stay in your room. So it actually in some ways will make things a little bit easier. What you'll do to begin this is that you'll move his bed right next to your bed, okay, so that it's directly touching your bed. And that's it. And then you'll sleep that way and he'll sleep and you'll both be fine. And he will be in his bed. If he starts to roll over you, then just tuck him in so that like the blanket on your side is closed so that he's in his bed. Put your hand over him and let him sleep. And then very, very gradually over the course of the next, let's say, month, you will inch his bed away from you. So you'll like open it up a tiny bit, that 1 inch, and then leave it that way for a week, and then go maybe 2 inches and leave it that way for 2 weeks, and then open it 3 inches and leave it. So you do very slowly over the course of a month or 2 months or 3 months, however long it takes, to the point where his bed has now moved to the other side of the room. So that's the shaping procedure that you do. Now, in terms of the nightlight, the problem with nightlights is that there's several problems. One is that we don't sleep well when there's lights on. You need total darkness in order for melatonin to be produced in your body. So total darkness is better physiologically for sleep. Second thing is that night lights are actually the reason we see shadows. If you had full light or no light, you wouldn't see shadows, but night lights, you see shadows, and that is what tends to be scary. On the other hand, conversation about these things is very attention-seeking or attention-giving, so you don't really want to be conversing. I know you want to give him comfort, but now you're giving him comfort physically. He's on you, so he's next to you, and you have your hand on him. So please don't converse when he says, "What's that? What's this?" Just pat him and just calm him down that way, and don't have a communication about it. He'll stop. If you don't converse about it, it'll first get more and then it'll decrease. And that's the way to do it. You just pat him like that, and then he'll stop talking about it, and then you will gradually fade him away. Ideally, try to see if you can eliminate the nightlight. What I would do is I'd probably go out there and buy a bunch of different nightlights that start with high light and go down to the ones that are very, very low. Mm-hmm. And then I would put it on the far end of the room, and I would basically try to fade it out, because darkness actually allows us to sleep a lot better.
Love it. I happen to love the Uncle Milton toys. They have a
I love that. The moon.
Yeah, the
thing.
moon one
I love
is
that.
great. They have a whole series of night lights that come with remotes. so that you can turn them off from bed.
That's fantastic.
And they come in different characters, but Jem still has it on the wall. We don't use it anymore, but it still is on the wall. The moon one.
So does Sunny.
Really?
Yeah.
My sister wanted one.
He hasn't
for
turned
Christmas.
it on. He hasn't turned it on for years.
But
I just saw it there the other day, and I was like, I remember that thing.
Right? And it comes with a lot of informational stuff. But what I love about it is it's got the remote, and every time you click it, it shows you a different phase of the moon.
Right.
So you can get it. I don't know what the actual names for it, but we call it the fingernail moon. You can start with a full moon and get it down to the
something like phases of the moon or something like that.
Yeah, and there's like the full gibbous and the
it's very good.
Gibbous
It's really good.
yeah. But great thing, and it's decorative.
It's a National Geographic toy.
But the manufacturer that makes it though is Uncle Milton, because we've had them on the show.
Okay, there you go.
And you can get them at I think at Target and
everywhere.
At Walmart, and it's not that expensive. It's not more than $20.
Yep.
But the remote is my favorite part about it, because we could read and have the night light on,
and that helps a lot.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, very cool. All right, we've had a lot of questions about 504s lately. My elementary school child just got diagnosed with ADHD. How soon does a school take action when they get a 504 document in hand? I'm a concerned mom because the teacher is not on the same page as we are. What's my next step? Thank you. Cannot get enough of your advice.
That's nice. Thank you very much. Well, the answer is right away, immediately. So once there's a 504 document in place, they need to implement it. So you need to call an emergency IEP. That's what I would do. Is I would call an emergency IEP and I would say, hey, you guys are not implementing the 504 document. So, hopefully it won't get contentious. But if it does, obviously you can have parent advocacy help you. I know that there are a lot of, depending on where you are, FEET groups usually have someone who's a parent advocate who can help. I was going to say California regional centers usually would have, but they're going extinct soon. So usually I feel that the only other people who help us when it comes to IEPs are parents. So I would suggest you really get involved with a parent group if you need help.
Yeah.
Of course, special education lawyers will help you as well, but hopefully it won't get that bad.
Absolutely. And, you can request, a lot of times that they won't have the teacher there when you call a meeting. You can request that the teacher is there, and I would encourage you to start documenting everything. Yeah. Work hard to see if you can get the teacher on the same page with you, but document everything.
So, it's not like the IEP itself where there's like a phase of you have to be able to, from the time you request, they have something like 20 days to respond and so on and so forth. Once the 504 document is there, everybody has to implement it. And very often, nobody's really even aware of it.
Right, absolutely. Okay, what can you do when an autistic child is having a meltdown? Can you tell when a child is going to have a meltdown? And if so, how could it be prevented? They went on to add that their child is currently getting B12 injections every other day, and there is definitely a difference when they skip a few days versus the days that she gets the shot and after.
Right. So there's a lot of things you can do when a child's having a meltdown, and we can talk about that in a minute, but I think it's important for our viewers to kind of take a step back and look at autism and what we know about autism. There is no magic injection or pill that will all of a sudden take away the symptoms of autism and make things all better. It just doesn't exist. Now, methyl B12 shots can help if the child is a low methylator and needs help with methylation, which obviously is the way that we detoxify. So that is always an important thing because our kids become very highly toxic and then they're kind of out of it. And with methyl B12, they're almost awake and detoxifying like we are. So that's an important thing, and it also probably gives them some energy too, so they can attend better. But it's not going to stop the behaviors, the challenging behaviors and the other symptoms of autism. With meltdowns, what you cannot look and think, oh, there's a pill that I can give my child, because if there was, which there is, there are things like Risperdal, what you're doing is you're not dealing with the main cause and the issue. You're just suppressing a behavior. You're just kind of turning the child into more of like someone who's sedated so that they don't act out. And that's not what you want, because this is the very, very important thing about meltdowns. A meltdown is communication. Any kind of challenging behavior is communication. It's the child trying to tell you something. In fact, if you think about it, first of all, challenging behaviors are not a symptom of autism, and I keep saying this. They're just a side effect of not being able to communicate. And this is true of pretty much anyone, not just kids with autism. Any child or any adult who has a meltdown, typically developing people, it's because they haven't been able to communicate themselves, and they haven't been able to kind of understand what their sensitivities are. Why is this bothering me so much? How could I better communicate this? And when you think about these things and figure them out to yourself, with yourself, and you're able to actually communicate it with someone, you feel a lot better, and then there's no meltdown. Now, this is exactly what happens with our kids too. So there's different scenarios. For instance, someone might come and tell the child, I need you, I want you to stand in line and do this work, and then after this work, you have to do that work, and so on. And the child just doesn't want to do it. So they have a meltdown, and they learn, oh, every time I have a meltdown, people will leave me alone. So they learn the meltdown is effective. Having a tantrum becomes good communication for them, because every time they want something or want to avoid something, it's an effective way of telling people, leave me alone, I don't want to do this. Or another example would be when you see a child like trying to get a toy from another child, and they'll hit the other child, and they'll grab the toy, and they'll win. They will succeed in taking the toy away. So hitting other people becomes a behavior that's effective. Or a child will throw a tantrum, and the teacher will remove the child from the classroom. And the child internally, without even being aware of it, quite subconsciously learns, wow, this is pretty cool. Every time I have a tantrum, I can leave school. So this is an effective thing. If you think about it, the only reason typically developing kids don't do the same thing, there's two maintaining factors with typically developing kids that our kids don't experience. One is embarrassment in front of their peers. They're not aware of how the peers are looking at them or perceiving them, because they lack this perspective taking ability. So what happens as a result is they actually couldn't care less. So they'll throw a tantrum and get kicked out of class, and they're not embarrassed by it because of other people looking at it. Typically developing kids are embarrassed, so they won't do that. In fact, typically developing kids are so embarrassed just to be present, they'd like to be invisible if possible. The other factor is that we care a lot about what our parents think, because we want to please our parents. It's reinforcing for us to have a parent say, good job, you did a great thing. With our kids, it's not so reinforcing. They're not aware of what behaviors parents want them to do and what behaviors parents don't want them to do. They're of equal value, negative and positive attention. So a lot of times our kids are not like motivated to be the good kid in class. They'll just throw the tantrum, get kicked out, and they don't realize it has a negative effect on the parent. So what I'm basically trying to say is, it's very important that you realize that having a meltdown is a form of communication. Now, what is the child trying to communicate? I always say there's two things we're trying to communicate. I want something, or I want to avoid something. That's it. So figure out, in each instance, it could be a different thing. So next time your child has a meltdown, just sit there and think about, what is he trying to get or avoid? Usually the child's trying to get a tangible object, something, or they're trying to get attention, okay? Usually what they're trying to avoid is giving up something they like, or a situation they're in that they would rather not be in, like a class. So write those down. Figure out for each time the child has a tantrum, figure out what the function is. This is what I'm talking about, is the function. Once you've identified the function, then we can intervene. Now, the interventions differ based on the function. So let's say a child has a meltdown because they want to avoid being in the classroom. Well, You don't allow them to get out of the classroom when they have a meltdown. You keep them in the classroom. Why? Because it gives the child the message that having a meltdown is not effective in getting you out of the classroom. It is no longer an effective form of communication. From now on, if you want to get out of the classroom, you have to ask for a break, either verbally or non-verbally through an icon. You just have to ask for a break. Or let's say a child wants to hit their sibling to grab a toy. You have to stop that and not allow the child to win, to get the toy. So essentially what you do is you're making the communication of the tantrum ineffective. You're making sure that it does not succeed. Once you've done that, then you teach the child a different, more appropriate, more adaptive way of making their needs known. And once they're able to communicate in a more adaptive way, and the non-adaptive way, the meltdown, is not effective, then they will use the more adaptive way. It's really that simple. After half an hour, it's really that simple.
That simple. But you know, when you get it, it is amazing. I love the mom who said, now when my child does something that I don't want them to do, I have to think to myself, what is it that they want? What is it that they want? And when they're doing something I don't want them to do, when I know what they want, give them the exact opposite. So if they wanted attention, I'm going to give them no attention. If they wanted to get out of it, I'm going to make them do it.
Right.
That's a really simple thing.
Unless they ask for it in a nice way.
Right. If they're doing it inappropriately. Yeah. Right. So
exactly. Do the opposite.
And once you do that, but that's when they're doing something you don't want them to do. When they're doing something you do want them to do, then we just praise.
Absolutely.
And reinforce, because praise is not always reinforcing, but we always want to pair it with whatever.
And it's a little bit more. It's kind of also like questioning why you don't want them to do something. Like sometimes we don't want our kids to do something because we're embarrassed or because we think it's not good, but there's no real rule about whether it is good or not. I mean, I always question things, like, you know, we maintain a certain type of relationship with our kids, and I always wonder if that's the right way to be. There's no rules around how you are with your kids. Everybody's different.
But I think that one of the hallmarks of the CARD program, and whenever I meet people all the time who go, oh, I don't like ABA because they're training little robots.
Right.
And you know, and then they're forcing kids to not be themselves and be like us, and that's just wrong. And I'm always extra grateful for CARD, because I think the difference in CARD is that you meet the kids where they are, and you, with the family, make judgments about, you know, we had somebody on the show recently who said, what's wrong with this? Why can't someone do this? Really, what's wrong with it?
Right.
And my answer to that was, there are times of the day when there's nothing wrong with this, but if this is all the child can do, then this becomes impossible.
Exactly.
And we want the child to be able to write and communicate and whatever, but once they are able to do this, if there's a part of the day when this makes them feel better, woohoo!
Who cares? Do it on your own. The other side of it is also, I think, so here's the other thing or a different way of saying, like, what's wrong with it. What's wrong with it is that when you're doing this, even if it's not interfering with this, it's interfering with anything else you could learn. Because when our kids get into that mode of self-stimulatory behavior, they're really not paying attention to anything outside of themselves. And this is kind of a commonality they have with kids with ADHD. Kids with attention deficit, it's not like they don't attend to certain things. In fact, they attend to certain things in a very, very extreme way, which is sort of their own things of interest. And that's all they attend to, and that's why they have attention deficit to other things. And it's really important for our kids to, like, in general, for any human being, I think the lesson is just to be more aware. And the more aware you are of all the stimuli around you, the more successful you are. There's no question about that, because you learn to read and see cues that are subtle. And they could be cues about human beings, or cues about the weather, or cues about an accident that's about to happen, whatever it is. The more observant you are, the better you do.
Yeah. But going back to my point that CARD, you embrace the kids where they are, as they are, and who they are. And so what you see are the kids who graduate from CARD are these creative, polite, caring,
Very sweet, lovely people.
very much themselves. They're
Right.
individuals.
Right.
They have their interests that they're really good at,
Right.
but they're capable of holding a conversation about other things than just their interests. They're well-rounded. They're the people I think we all would like to be, and they're happy kids.
Yeah, and they're nice kids. They're
Yes.
like nice human beings
Yes.
because they never really, they just, they don't become competitive. They don't become mean. They don't try to quash someone else in order to be better.
Right.
They don't have big egos. They don't, none of that exists
Yeah.
in autism. And
Which
that's
is
one
a
of the things I
lovely thing.
love about autism.
Yeah, but I don't think that that's necessarily the case every place else. I
Yeah,
think
that's
Very
interesting.
specific to CARD.
I don't know. I think it's very specific to the nature of autism in some ways, Shannon, because like the nature of autism, you just, if you don't like, we talk about all the bad things, right, that comes about from not being able to take someone else's perspective. The truth is a ton of good stuff comes about it as well. Like, if you're not able to take someone else's perspective, you're not embarrassed,
Right.
which has downsides, but it also has upsides.
Yes.
So you're just a much more social being in some ways, and you're not going to be all like offended or shy or try to look good all the time, or none of that exists. They don't care. The kids are just themselves.
Yes.
And there's like really cool stuff that comes out of autism as well.
I remember the first time in kindergarten that Jem stood up and they were talking about, the teacher was saying that there was a holiday coming up, and she said, so if you want to wear your holiday costume, you can. And there was something, Jem still, words are very specific to him, and he stood up and said, oh, I can wear my holiday dress. He didn't say costume, he said holiday dress. And all the kids giggled because he's a little boy and he was talking about a dress. And he turned and he looked at everybody and he said, are you laughing with me or at me?
Fantastic.
In kindergarten, right? And the
Oh my
teacher,
God,
and I
I love
happened
that.
to be there volunteering that day, and the teacher and I looked at each other, and afterwards I cried.
Yeah.
And she said, are you okay? And I said, it was such an amazing moment. It's him noticing what's going on. But now we need to work on him understanding people are going to think those things, and it's okay to not care.
Okay. Or Shannon,
Yeah.
like here's one of the things I love about that. This is the other side of it that I see, right?
Okay.
Is like what a fantastic world it would be if everyone actually was that direct.
Yeah.
That frank. Like what he did was what I now do. I've gone full cycle from like ignoring people who might laugh at me to just not caring about it, or trying not to care about it, or caring more about the people who are with me, or whatever it is, right? And learning that you don't have to be embarrassed, you just be blah blah blah, all that whole thing. And then with many years later, with wisdom that we learn from life, I've come to the conclusion that when something like that happens, I need to just say, hey, you guys, are you laughing with me or at me?
Yeah.
Because it's an education for them.
Yeah.
It's an awakening for them to think, by the way, you just did something mean.
Yes.
Like, and that's what I love about it, is that, his pureness just came out.
Yeah.
And he said, are you laughing with me or at me?
Yeah.
And that's beautiful in
Yes.
so many ways. And that's what I love about autism, is that the complications are not there.
Yeah.
They're just
Yeah.
not, and you
Yes.
can get through the psyche so much faster. It's amazing.
It is an amazing thing. How can I help my 7-year-old stop picking his nose? When I volunteer in his class, I see this. I quietly ask him to get a tissue, and he gets angry at me and continues to pick. I don't want the other kids to tease him, and thank you for your suggestions.
Yeah. So I would, it's a little bit hard to block that behavior by each time it occurs, because it could be very frequent and it does get a lot of attention. So what I would do instead is I would reinforce an incompatible behavior. So I would probably, for instance, one thing you could do is, yeah, this is great. So go to any store like Target or something and buy a bunch of things that are like flats, like things that he could have a pile of things, and they've put a price tag on it, because picking those price tags off is the biggest nightmare of the universe. I don't know if you guys have experienced like trying to take a price tag off
Yes.
something that's stuck on. It's like, oh my Lord, and it comes into pieces and
Right.
so on and so forth. And I think like keeping his hands occupied with something that's right in front of him, and it could be anything. It could be something that's benign to the school situation. So, you know, a card with a few stickers on it, where he does that every time he has the urge to actually pick his nose, because it's a very similar kind of behavior, picking at a piece of paper. And it'll be a small thing, and then you gradually can reduce the size of it, and just make sure that it's not easy to take off. You know, and the price tags are very good because they're made to come apart,
Right.
so that people can't steal. So they're cut, you know, so they have
Yeah.
little cuts. So price tags are a great thing because he'll have to do little bits of it, little pieces of it.
Okay.
That would be an
That's a
easy way
great
to get
idea.
rid of. It's a habit. Once you break the habit, and also pay attention. A lot of times our kids start to do those things if they have allergies. Perhaps he has a dry nose. Like try to look into why he has developed that behavior to begin with. If he has allergies, you're going to want to make sure he uses a spray that moisturizes the nasal cavities and or maybe his lips as well, and so that he's comfortable. So later on, when this is finished, he doesn't have a sensation of having to go back to his nose.
Great.
Yeah, and you can also, you know, you can fade this activity to something that's in his pocket, and he's just like picking at the price tag or something in his pocket. You can gradually fade it away.
Great. And we'd never used a nasal spray before, but we just when I was sick and my son I had pneumonia, my son had bronchitis. We found one at Sprouts that was water, grapefruit seed extract, which is very good for
That's
things,
awesome.
and xylitol, which is supposed to be good for things. So nothing horrible in there at Sprouts. So free plug for Sprouts. Okay, I have a 3-year-old that has pervasive developmental disorder, which is autism. Lately, he is really kicking, hitting, throwing, etc. It's when he's overexcited and happy, not out of anger. He seeks touch. How can I calm him when he gets so excited he has a hard time calming himself?
Okay. So PDD, pervasive developmental disorder, doesn't exist anymore. It's part of the ASD diagnosis now. It's part of the spectrum of autism spectrum disorders, ASD. And if you had PDD in the past, then you'd probably be classified as a 1-1 in the ASD spectrum right now, which means you have mild deficits in both social communication and in repetitive behaviors. Perhaps he has, it's a 1-2 or 2-1. It could be a slightly higher severity level, but he's mildly affected with autism. And he kicks and so on and so forth when he's excited, which basically means that he has difficulty with regulating his own senses. When you get excited, you are producing a lot of neurotransmitters, which are elation, which cause various types of emotions like elation and so on and so forth. And so whether it's serotonin or dopamine that he's producing in those moments, he doesn't know how to downregulate. His body doesn't downregulate those things. So, and normally we do. So a lot of things that we do help us downregulate the neurotransmitters. So, you know, it would be important to try to teach him techniques that would help him. But first, did the parents say the age of the child?
3.
3. So he's very young. So at this point, what you do is when he gets excited and he starts doing that sort of thing, you grab him and you just hold him really tight. So this is kind of like a bear hug. Like, you may want to massage his arms and legs or whatever it is, but you will hold him until he calms down. It's funny because these are the original premise of holding therapy, which was a lot of this. But having said that, what you're really doing is you're just kind of helping him to calm until his neurotransmitter burst is over. Over time, what you're going to look for is ways that he can take that over himself and downregulate. So, you know, in the old days, we used to have these weighted vests. Weighted vests often help our kids downregulate. One of the things that would really help with your child is to have an area in his room and in various rooms, which is his calming area. So if he starts to feel that he's getting hyper and like all excited or something, you would send him to the area. You would actually say, go to your calm space. It could be like a little house in the corner of the room. It could be just a bean bag. Bean bags actually are very calming themselves. Biggest calming experience is rocking. When you rock back and forth like this, which not that I'm telling you to teach your child how to rock, but if there's a rocking chair that your child could sit in, by rocking you activate the parasympathetic system in your body, and once the parasympathetic nervous system is activated, you calm. That's why we rock babies. But so if you can teach him things that would activate the parasympathetic nervous system, it will downregulate. Rocking is the primary thing that will help. But also, I think a lot of our kids who are hyperstimulated like this and just need to learn to calm down, breathing exercises help them. He's a little bit young for that at 3. At 3, you'll be doing a lot of the calming for him. You'll be helping him. You can also use bodysuits, the bodysuits that the kids climb into, and they're pretty tight, and it keeps them in one like contained space. That sensory all over his skin sensation will tend to calm him down. I don't.
Are those dry brushes?
Dry brushes might hyperactivate.
Okay.
It's got to be more something that is very enclosing, you know, like kind of like roll him up in a blanket.
Yeah, the burrito.
Exactly, the burrito. The things, it's very interesting. We're just writing an article on sensory inputs with autism. It's a very big factor. And there are specific activities that help down-regulate versus activities that stimulate. And you know who you should consult with a local OT who is trained in sensory integration. This is probably very important for you to do because, and you're going to be asking for activities that help down-regulate. I just know some because I've learned some from OTs, but I'm pretty sure OTs can give you a few more.
We have a great OT that's a semi-regular on the show that she has 2 sons on the autism spectrum as well, so she's an autism mom and she gets it. Her name is Kara Kaczynski. They call her the Pocket OT. She has a series of books that are great. She has a new book that's about to come out on weighted blankets.
That's fabulous, yeah.
In fact, I just did the review for it. My quote about it will be on the back cover of her book. And I think you'd find it really interesting.
Yeah, weighted blankets are awesome.
I'm going to make one. As soon as Autism Awareness Month is over, I have plans to make a weighted blanket because of this book.
It's interesting, Shannon, I have to say that although, you know, it's pretty expensive, but there's also a lady that produces these. She doesn't produce them for the purposes of weighted blankets, but she produces them with silver, actual silver, because what they do is they don't allow electromagnetic fields to enter the body, right?
Wow.
And they're extremely heavy
Yeah.
because of the fact that it's built with silver. They're knitted into it.
Wow.
And so that's kind of an interesting concept as well.
Okay, I'll have to look more into that.
Yeah.
But very interesting. Okay, I'm going to move on to another question. We've got 2 questions about potty training. That one that's 4 and one that's 14. I'm going to start with the 14-year-old because it just came in. We're trying hard to potty train my 14-year-old nonverbal daughter. She gets very aggressive when we ask her to sit on the toilet. I don't want her to think that she can get out of it by hitting and knocking things over. I give her choices of books to take with her and play her music, which is her favorite, when she sits. Sometimes getting her to the bathroom is a nightmare. She has a PEX board that she doesn't use consistently. She gets reinforced when she eliminates. Thanks for your wonderful advice. I feel like I'm doing it all wrong, and she made a sad face. We're sending you air hugs.
Yes, we are. And don't ever feel like you're doing it all wrong. The fact that you're doing something makes it all right. So that's all that matters, is that you're attempting things. Now, first of all, I would, if I was personally going to potty train a 14-year-old, I would ask for help. So you need to have a therapist and someone who's board certified. Because potty training a 14-year-old nonverbal child is not easy. So what I want to start with here is you're reinforcing her for voiding in the potty, and that's great. But what you need to do is establish a desire for her to even go to the bathroom. That's where you're stuck. So those reinforcers that you mentioned, which is the music and books, don't allow her to have them during the day. They will then gain value. They will become highly valuable. And then you will be able to really get her to go sit down. I promise you. The hard part is not giving her those items the rest of the day. So you don't have to do it with both. She can have books the rest of the day. But music, which might be her most powerful, should only happen if she's sitting on the toilet. And then, of course, that will help her sit on the toilet for a longer period of time, and then she will have more successes. There is a specific procedure that I use. I always use the Fox and Nazarene procedure. People have made tons of modifications to this. It is available online. It's available in a lot of different books. But I do suggest that you use a BCBA and you follow a specific shaping procedure for potty training. It's not something you can do on your own, especially when the child's 14. And again, the biggest issue I think for you is to make sure you have a powerful reinforcer that she cannot access the rest of the time.
Okay, there's so many questions to choose from. I'm going to go to one that came in just recently. Hello, good morning. My son is currently attending a special day classroom. The teacher reports that he doesn't want to, and the verb is missing there, doesn't want to something the teachers, the aides, or the peers.
Listen to it, probably.
Probably. He's not doing classwork. I suggested to use reinforcements like food or something he likes in the classroom, but she says he doesn't like anything in the classroom. I told her that is behavior that he is avoiding. She said she doesn't think it's a behavior problem because he's not hitting anybody or tantruming in the classroom. At home, he talks to the family, does his homework. We are in the process of getting ABA services through your Arcadia Center.
Oh, good.
We have the intake appointment on April 18th. I was wondering if they could see him at school as part of the assessment.
Yes.
We also have our annual IEP at the end of this month, and I don't know how to approach the school. What do I do? And thank you so much for your help, and God bless you for all that you do.
Thank you very much. And God bless you too. Thank you for that. You will definitely, if you, at your intake appointment, which is coming up, tell the supervisor that you would like to make sure an evaluation is also done at the school. Tell them all these issues, and yes, then we will arrange an observation to see what's going on. If you're insurance funded, usually insurance will not cover anything at school, but we will roll this initial assessment into the intake so that basically it's an observation of different communities, different environments where your child isn't doing well. So we'll be able to see what's going on at school. And it's very important. If the child's doing very, very well at home and not so well at school, I'm pretty sure that we'll be able to figure out something that's going on, and then we'll have to change the environment. Having said that, you will still need to call an IEP. So in preparation for that, what I would suggest is that you have your intake on the 18th. I don't know how soon after that we'll be able to get you started, but potentially we'll be able to get a school meeting, an IEP, before the end of the school year, which means it'll have to happen in May or very early June.
It sounds like her IEP is already scheduled for the end of April.
End of April.
But you could ask for an extension.
Yes.
Or you can start the IEP but not sign it.
Yes. You'll probably, when we get involved with things like that, and here's what will happen. If you have insurance funding, it won't pay for our staff to go to the IEP with you. So you might have to independently pay for a supervisor to go to the IEP with you. But then once we recommend funding and get funding from your school district, from that point forward, your supervisor will be going to your IEPs, will be writing all the goals, will be doing all the things you need necessary for your school, for your IEPs and for functioning at the school. Be very clear, insurance companies are very strict about us not providing any services in the school setting unless we're funded by the schools, because they consider that to be educational and not medical necessity, which is, I disagree with completely, but regardless, the point is that we would need to get involved with your school. Now, I don't know what district you're in. Each district has other types of issues as well, but we are contracted with all the districts in California, many districts across the country. And so we would probably be able to get some funding from your school. This is an issue that occurs in school. The school needs to also get involved and participate with us.
Yeah.
No, so they're in Arcadia. So they're going to the Arcadia office. So it could potentially be LA Unified.
Or Pasadena Unified.
Or Pasadena Unified. And both of those we've worked with. I mean, we have the largest contract with LA UST, so.
And, you know, it's concerning that whoever the person is who's saying, I don't think it's behavior.
Yeah.
But that's fixable.
Yeah.
That's very fixable.
And sometimes it's like people will say stuff like that, and it's not even worth the time to teach them differently. We just intervene. We get involved. Any kind, just blocking people out, not listening, not paying attention is a challenging behavior. And obviously, something's up. Your child's either not getting reinforced adequately, or they have learned that they can space out during the day in school, or they're shy, they're embarrassed, maybe they're being bullied. I don't know, but something's up, because this is a very big contrast in behavior. And so your supervisor will get involved with this.
Yeah. We've only got 1 minute left, but I'd love to see if we can address this. Can you recommend activities or direct me to age-appropriate resources for my 20-year-old daughter with limited language and motor ability? She does seem to get offended with baby toys, but she needs stimulation and things to do, especially during school vacations. ESY is limited to 4 weeks in our district, and she tends to regress behaviorally at home. Finding things to keep her engaged is a very big challenge.
Yeah.
20 years old.
I know. So I don't know her functioning skills, but what I would really suggest is that you test out several different things. Like, some of our kids are fantastic at painting. I would really get her a bunch of paints and brushes and see what she can, let her go to town and see if that's something she gets into. I would try to teach her knitting. Knitting is something that a lot of our kids love and get engaged in. I would buy her a small synthesizer and see if she's musical or likes to play around with the music. So there's a lot of different things that you might want to, like beads. Get her a bunch of beads and see if she can string them, and teach her how to string so she can make jewelry. There's a lot of things like this, and that's just right off the top of my head, but there's a lot of activities that not only could she enjoy, but she could actually produce a business from them.
Absolutely.
So all of these are like important things to try.
My mother made me hook rugs.
Yeah, there you go. I used to actually love that.
Right? And it's a very simple thing once you learn how to do it. It's a repetitive thing, but
absolutely.
you hook rugs.
Or get her a loom, like for weave. And with the weaving process, many of our kids really enjoy, and they can actually.
It's heavy work, which can be
it's
very
fantastic
good.
Stuff.
Yeah. And then of course there's the whole world of online. If she is able if she is able to get on a computer and use a mouse.
Yeah.
You say limited language and motor ability. I don't know if she can type but there's a whole world, whether it's games or socially, there's a whole world there.
The best place I think for you is to go to Michael's and walk around, and each month maybe try 5 new things. I mean, they have like things like she could make soap, she could make candles, there's like a million things. Right, and if you learn them, you can also teach them to her yourself, but find her an activity. You absolutely have it right that it's important for her to engage in something, and find her an activity, and she'll become productive, and she'll enjoy it, and you can sell the products, and she'll be earning an income for herself. It'll be very nice.
A little Etsy shop.
Exactly.
There we go.
What is autism?
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 I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to,
Jeez. Let me think. Oh man, that's a big one. Yes.
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
A lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them.
Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
It's a way of seeing the world differently.
It's always unique, totally intelligent, and sometimes mysterious.
Happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
Is a movement.
Unpredictable.
That's right.
Awesome.
Love. The field I want to work in.
Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these 3 words. There is hope.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Didn't you love seeing Dr. Granpichet? Don't you miss her? She is going to be back not next week, but the week after. I won't be here, but Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson will be here with Dr. Doreen Granpichet, and they'll be answering your questions. So you want to keep a watch out for that. But right now, there's something happening in Milwaukee that we're all missing, and that's a tragedy. But we have Alex Plank in Milwaukee, and we're going to be checking in with him. Excuse me. We checked in with him yesterday. Yesterday, he was at a conference for autistic health. And so we checked in with him to see what was happening there. A little bit later on today, we're hoping to check in and catch him at the Autism Society of America conference. So first up, and don't forget, when this is over, we're going to come back to you live with Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson is back. So that's going to be really exciting. And we have our special guest, Linda Copeland, who's going to be joining us. But first, we have an interview that we taped yesterday with Alex Plank and a very good friend. Take a look. Welcome back to Autism Live. Right now, we're traveling to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and we're going live to Alex Plank at a wonderful conference, and he has got a wonderful guest with him. I'm going to turn it over to him so Alex can tell you where he is and who he's with.
Well, I am actually here with Teal Benavides, who's the project lead of this Autistic Adults and Other Stakeholders Engaging Together, AutisticHealth.org. We are here in the conference room. We just conducted our Twitter chat, Asset Chat. And Teal, I wanted to ask you, what do you think, how do you think the conference has been going? I think it's been a tremendous success. What do you say?
I would agree with you, Alex. This morning we've had a lot of engagement from the community. So everything that we've talked about this morning has been focused on engagement and involvement, meaningful involvement of the autism community. So ways that self-advocates can be included as research partners in outcome studies that address things that impact people's lives, the things that people want, and conversations around what people want.
And as far as the social media side has gone, I've seen incredibly good engagement. People are getting excited about it. We have a lot of, the Twitter chat was a massive success, really cool answers. I thought that was cool. What's going on this afternoon? Because we had a great panel of quite a few people, including Beth Hunter, Becca Laurie, Christina Nicolaitis,
Kathleen Thomas.
Kathleen Thomas, of course. Yeah.
Yes, we're really trying hard, and I think that you've been a key to the success of the social media piece. We really want to be sure that we include people who are not just here in Milwaukee, but everywhere, both here in the U.S. as well as across the world. We had some international guests here physically from our sunny world in Russia, and also Zoom webinar attendees from Australia, including Barb Cook and others.
Who's also been tweeting.
She's been on our Twitter chat. So we are really interested in getting out there and involving as many people as possible in this process of identifying priorities for improved health for autistic adults.
Yeah, and I think one thing that was really great about this conference is the fact that people have been compensated for their time for coming here. We have the community council, we have, the project team. This is mainly autistic adults who are doing it and getting paid to work on the project. One thing that was brought up was, a lot of times research doesn't have that kind of compensation that's fair and like actually giving people what they deserve. And I also people got some sort of gift card thing, right? Like,
right.
Want to talk about that?
We wanted to make sure that people who are traveling to come into Milwaukee were provided compensation for their time and travel. And so, as you mentioned, PCORI, our funder, is very much interested in making sure that we have reciprocal relationships that are built on trust. And that means that our project team is all paid equally and for the roles that they play. And you, as our social media coordinator, are an important part of our project team, as is Patty, who's our conference coordinator. So we really value everyone on the team, and our community council members, as you mentioned, are compensated for their time and effort too. So meaningful reciprocal relationships are a key to the project, as you mentioned.
And you can tell that people are definitely feeling really comfortable. You can tell that there's a lot of questions, a lot of engagement from the audience when there's a panel discussion. We have some breakout sessions right now going on, and and the thing about what you just said, a lot of conferences, not only do you not get paid to come to it, but you have to pay to go to it. And especially if you're an autistic and you might not have a job, or even if you do and you just don't have enough money to spare, you're getting left out of the discussion, and that's not fair. That's why this is so fantastic.
That's right. We're really trying to balance this with what do we know about health and healthcare outcomes. So providing information to the community, how are researchers partnering with the autism community, and what are strategies that they have found that have worked well for them. And then also making sure that everyone has a voice. And so this afternoon, our breakout sessions are mainly activity-based, people talking and discussing important outcomes and interventions that are desired by the community. So I'm excited to go and see how those are progressing. They're being led right now by Dr. Stephen Shore and Amy Gravino, one of our community council members, and Henry Coretta. And our other breakout session is being led by Anita Lesko, our project co-lead, and Becca Laurie, one of our community council members. So fully involved in this process of engaging.
And we've had people come from all over the country, and I even saw one of our community council members came from Russia, Daria, and then we had, just a bunch of people joining online as well to.
It's exciting, isn't it?
Well, and let me ask you a couple quick questions, and I know, Teal, you need to go, but to keep this going, how can people who are at home and watching this and didn't get to go to the conference, how can they connect to keep that engagement going with them?
Well, I fully think that Alex, in his role as the social media coordinator, he has a Twitter feed, and we have a Facebook account, which is called Autistic Adults and Other Stakeholders Engaged Together. So that
it's facebook.com/autistic health. And then the Twitter handle is autistic_health.
Okay.
Right. And then following this conference, we're going to be posting another link where people can share their priorities for moving forward on autistic health outcomes. And that's going to be something that's research-based. People will need to read a short consent form, but it will be a safe environment. It'll be a closed Facebook group. It won't be publicly available unless people sign a consent form and agree to keeping that information private. But we would love to involve more people in sharing, and talking about this important topic of health and health outcomes. There are so many things that we need to address, and finding out what's most important to the autism community is the priority here.
Sure.
Absolutely.
So we'll post that and share that link with you about how people can get involved in that.
And the website again is autistichealth.org.
Wonderful. Now, Teal, which breakout session are you off to?
I'm headed off to the one on outcomes and meaningful outcomes that are desired by the autism community. So I'm looking forward to hearing about how that discussion is going right now.
Great.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. And that's Alex Plank. We're going to catch up with him in just a little while. It'll be today, tomorrow. Stick with us.
Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Nancy Alspaugh Jackson.
And I'm Shannon Penrod.
Hello, my friend.
I'm thrilled to have my friend back.
I know. I was on the East Coast visiting family and in the Outer Banks of the Carolinas in the sunshine.
And you look a little tan.
A little bit tan,
You're
yeah.
looking sun-kissed.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
good.
That was a good byproduct of it. It'll be gone in a couple of days.
It's good
probably.
vitamin D.
Good, yeah. Get that serotonin up.
Yes.
So,
and do you feel rested? Because a lot of times after a vacation, it's easy to feel exhausted afterwards.
I feel a little tired because flying back from the East Coast and a couple of connecting flights and stuff is.
We weren't
always
expecting
tough
her
away.
today. She's here, and I was like, "What are you doing here?" I thought you weren't back till tomorrow. So it's an unexpected pleasure.
Well, I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad you're here too. And then in a little while, we're going to have Dr. Linda Copeland.
Right.
We call her the unicorn for those of you who are new to the show, because she is a developmental pediatrician and a BCBA, a board certified behavior analyst. And we don't know of anybody else who is both of those things, which is kind of a luscious combination. combination.
Yeah, it is. She has a lot of experience.
Right, and whenever you want to go and talk to a pediatrician about something, you would love if they understood ABA and what you're trying to do. And,
right.
And she's that.
And we're talking to her about sleep, is my understanding.
Sleep. She's going to talk with us about sleep.
I'm going to have some questions on that. Why we were jet lagged. Wyatt hit the sack at 7 o'clock last night when it was light outside.
Right.
Then he woke up at 12 wanting to play Wii and have a good time for hours.
He's discombobulated, as we say.
He's discombobulated. And how do I get him combobulated?
Well, we'll talk to Dr. Copeland about how that works.
Okay.
And she's also got information about a study so that if you guys want to participate, there's the potential for that. And so that's going to be in just a few minutes. We hope that we're going to be able to have more information from Alex Plank at the Autism Society. You just watched an interview that we did with him yesterday at the Autistic Health. It was a meeting of the minds. I don't think it was an expo, but it was a conference. It was a meeting of the minds. And today he's at the Autism Society of America National Conference, and we're hoping to drop in with him a little bit later. But first, we have some news.
Yes, we do. I like this article, Shannon, that you found. It's out of the UK, but it's 4 autism stereotypes that teachers should try to dispel, written by a teacher. And the premise is that you should quickly abandon any preconceived ideas on what autistic people are like, because they're as diverse as any group of young people.
Absolutely. It's that thing that they credit Dr. Stephen Shore was saying, although he says, was I the first person that said it? But we credit him with it, saying when you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism.
And that's so obvious to me because I look at all the different...
Right?
Yeah.
But do you remember sometimes what it was like before we had kids with autism, the things that we didn't know?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
What I knew about autism couldn't have filled a thimble.
Right. And the number one thing is people with autism are geniuses. And it's one of the longest running stereotypes because it was popularized by, of course, the movie Rain Man, where Dustin Hoffman had the ability to instantly count hundreds of objects. And I think a lot of us were swayed by that portrayal. It was one of the most popular portrayals, obviously, in mainstream television.
Well,
film.
Yeah, but even beyond that, it seemed like for decades that whenever they covered autism stories in the news, it was always a savant.
Yeah.
There was that one young man who's still very prolific that you can fly him in a helicopter over a city and then sit him down in a room and he can draw the whole thing.
Verbatim.
And it would just you just look at it and go, my goodness, this is amazing. It's a miracle. And I think maybe it was the media's way of trying to put a spin on it that allowed people to see positives.
Right.
But unfortunately, when your kid is in a classroom and the teacher is expecting them to be a genius, and not everybody's a savant.
No.
It's not helpful.
Right.
Not helpful to assume that.
They conclude with the truth is that while many people who are geniuses have autism, the reverse does not hold true. There's a wide range of intellectual abilities.
Absolutely.
And then the second one, people with autism have prodigious memories.
Yeah.
Not necessarily.
Which
and that this is
right
out of
into
England. And that they reference the television series The A Word, which received a lot of positive.
Did you get to see that?
I never saw The A Word. I understand it was quite good.
I'll be honest with you. We watched like the first 3 or 4 episodes, and then I got uninterested because they were doing a kind of therapy that it wasn't ABA, and I was frustrated with that. I was like, this kid needs ABA. And then but it was good acting, good storytelling. And I would say the first 3 episodes, watching the family deal with a child getting diagnosed, right on the money, right on the money. But in that case, the kid knew, the dad had listened to 80s music, and the kid knew every single song, what the band was, what the backstory with the band was, what year it was produced, everything that would have been on the liner notes on the CD cassette thing, that kid knew. And some kids do have a pocket of things that they have knowledge of and memory of, but it's not true of everyone.
No, it's not.
And we can't assume that.
No.
And that's a good thing for teachers not to assume. I love number 3. Number 3 is, don't assume that people with autism have no sense of humor, because a lot of times they are hilarious and their sense of humor is spot on. If you doubt that, please go on Netflix, or is it Amazon? But the film Asperger's or Us is available. It's 4 gentlemen with Asperger's,
they are very funny.
And they are hilarious. So great sense of humor. I was just thinking about, we saw them in performance, and at the end of the performance they had a talk back and people could ask questions.
Right.
And they were asking about jobs from the audience. Do you guys have jobs? And one of them was saying, well, I used to be a paper boy. And he went on to say something, and one of the other ones muttered, but now he's a real boy. And I just fell apart because I thought it was hilarious. Very unexpected senses of humor, but hilarious. So don't assume that people with autism don't have a sense of humor.
And then having autism means ticking every box, meaning check every single symptom and quality.
It's a long list of things that if you have a certain number of them qualify you for autism, but nobody has all of them.
Yeah.
And by the way, nobody has none of them.
Exactly.
Even, we have some of those things.
Right.
And all the time, I'm sure you've experienced this where parents are like, I don't know, but I think maybe I have it. And it's because, we have everybody has several of them.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to have a certain number of them to qualify for a diagnosis. But no person has
all of them. Exactly. So that was
amazing.
Interesting, and I thought a good article.
I thought so too.
And then people with autism are better at avoiding sneaky marketing tricks. A secret superpower, according to a new article.
And isn't it refreshing? A lot of the times we focus on what our kids can't do.
Deficits.
And I love your friend Howie Mandel, who said, instead of focusing on disability, how about if we focus on this ability? What can our kids do? And this study kind of looks at something that our kids do differently and that there's a benefit from. That so often when marketing is decided in whatever towers on Madison Avenue that they decide, it's appealing to our baser brain, right?
Okay.
That they try to sell us, an iPad and tell us it's going to solve all of our problems.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to make us wealthy, that it will attract whatever sex we want to attract to us, and that we will become geniuses when we have it.
Mm-hmm.
And we buy into those advertising because we are like, oh, I want to have
that.
I want to feel the way it feels to be that person who has that iPad. We buy into that. Well, a study has shown that individuals with autism don't buy into all that bull. That they tend to still, even after shown all these things that depict people as being happier because they're drinking this soda. My iPad just crashed. I'm happier because I'm drinking this soda. People with autism still stick to the rules,
merits of the product.
Merits of it. Is it better? Does it taste better than this one? They don't buy into the idea that if I drink this soda, it's going to make me thin and popular, which is kind of wonderful and pragmatic and fabulous. But what I wonder is because there are so many individuals with autism now, does that mean that marketing is going to change?
I don't know.
We'll have to wait and see.
But
so the study is out, and you can check that out. It's all over the news right now.
Is it really?
People are talking about it. Yeah, it's everywhere. Because it's a benefit. It's
Science
a plus.
alert.
But
That's where you got the article from.
But there were 17 different iterations of it that I could have grabbed, but I just particularly like this one. In any case.
So are we going to take a break?
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to be joined by Dr. Linda Copeland, the unicorn, and she's going to talk with us specifically about
sleep. A very important topic for a lot of us. A lot of us have kiddos that have had sleep issues and have sleep issues.
I was saying earlier that you can put together the perfect program. You can have the perfect diet. You can have the best ABA team. You can have the best teacher and the best IEP, but if you're not getting sleep and your child isn't getting sleep, you're not going to make the progress that you hope to make. That sleep is really, the first order of business, making sure that you as a parent, I was told, and I always share this now with people, you got to put the oxygen mask on yourself first, that until I got some sleep, I wasn't going to be able to do an intervention with my son.
Right.
Boy, sleep is a big deal.
I'm sleep deprived today, and I can feel it.
Yeah, it's not a fun way to feel. And I think, I don't know if you feel this way, but I think that when we were younger, we had a bank of non-sleep hours that we could use up. And I used all of mine in college. and then I had a child with autism, and I used anything that was left. I can't go without sleep now.
Yeah, I can't either. I don't function well.
Can't do it. Yeah, no. Used to be able to, can't do it anymore.
Right, so we'll be back with that.
Anyway, back with Dr. Linda Copeland. Stick with us.
Hello, fellow activists. Let's talk about step 6, live in gratitude and give back. Have you ever noticed that it's impossible to feel sorry for yourself when you focus on your blessings? I have an exercise for you. Take out 5 pennies. I want each penny to represent something you're thankful for today. Now, I bet not one of those pennies represented something material, but that every one of them represented someone you love or a moment you shared with that someone.
Go through life parched and empty, standing knee deep in a river and dying of thirst.
There's a song by Kathy Mattea called Standing Knee Deep in a River and Dying of Thirst. Sometimes we need to look at the river of blessings flowing underneath us, and then we see we're not so thirsty after all. Once you realize how fortunate you are, you can freely give back to others, and there's nothing that will make you feel more fortunate than giving to those less fortunate than you. So start your day with an attitude of gratitude, and until next time, keep the faith.
Hi guys, welcome back. For the month of July, I figured we're going to do something again that's more for outdoorsiness since it's summertime and I know your kids are going to be home and you need some activities to do inside and outside. So for July, I figured we'd make a lantern. So let's get started. The materials you'll be needing are wax paper, an iron, crayons, scissors, popsicle sticks, pencil sharpener, a glue gun, and tape. What I did first is that I have my iron heating on medium heat, okay? Make sure you keep this far away from your child because I won't want them to get hurt. Next thing I want to do is I'm going to take my wax paper and I'm going to make 4 sheets. I'm going to cut out a thing that's about 12 inches long, okay? Now that I have my wax papers cut out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my crayons, and if you have kids around, which I hope you do, I'm going to grab them and have them make some crayon shavings. What the shavings are going to end up doing is making it a design. And again, this is another time for you and your child to talk about colors. You can discuss like what would happen if you mix, some blue crayons and some yellow crayons. What would that produce? When you and your child finally decided there's enough crayon shavings on your wax paper, what you're going to do next is you're going to take it and fold it in half. Now that I have it folded in half, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take an old newspaper and then I'm going to sandwich it in between. And then with my iron on medium heat, I'm just going to have it gently on there just so the wax melts into the paper and becomes one thing. Let's take a peek inside. And as you can see, all the crayons have melted into it, making this beautiful kind of like rainbow-ish color. All right, now I'm going to do this with the other 3 that I've made, and then we're going to assemble our beautiful lantern. All right? So here are my 4 finished panels that I'm ready to build into the lantern. So what I'm going to do is I have these popsicle sticks, and I'm going to build them into a square and glue them together with my hot glue gun. While you're building your lantern, it's a good opportunity to work on math skills with your child. You could discuss how many sides does a square have versus how many sides does a cube have. Okay, I'm going to do this another 3 more times, so I have one for every single side. All right, well, now that I have these 4 different sides built, I am now going to take these wax paper things that I built, and then I'm going to put glue on here and smash it on there, okay? I know the wax paper is way too big for it, but what we're going to do later is trim it. All right, so now they're all done being glued together. Now I'm going to take my scissors and trim along the outside. Now that the 4 sides are done, I'm going to take some tape and I'm going to line the edge of it so they will stay together to make my cube form. And voila, here's my lantern, but it's missing something. You're right, it's missing a light to illuminate it. So what I'm going to put in here is an LED light. I'm definitely not going to put a real candle or else this thing's going to catch on fire, and that is a real safety hazard, okay? So here's my little guy, and I'm going to turn it on and let's see what happens. Ooh, look at that. Isn't that pretty nice? And it's not even dark yet. I would love if you shared your pictures of your finished crafts. But until then, craft on. Bye, guys.
Can you see me flying by your side?
And welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. As promised, now we have our special guest.
Dr. Linda Copeland is joining us via Skype, and you're going to see it's a little bit interesting because we're having an issue with Skype this morning. So we've got her live on the phone and live on Skype, and we apologize. It's going to be a little bit interesting. It's not going to sync up just right, but it's good information. And we welcome Dr. Copeland back to the show. As I mentioned, we call her lovingly the unicorn because she is both a developmental pediatrician and a board-certified behavior analyst. And that, my friends, is rare. And amazing. So, and she's pretty fabulous and sparkly, so we like to call her the unicorn. And we haven't had her on the show for a while, but Dr. Copeland, thank you for being willing to be on the show today.
Oh, my pleasure.
And thank you for being willing to be on the phone with us. So, Dr. Copeland, we particularly today wanted to talk with you about sleep, and this is something that you're working very closely on right now. Tell our viewers how you're working on sleep.
Yes, CARD is working on sleep because we know good sleep is so important for all the children to make good progress in their learning. We also know that kids with autism tend to have sleep problems frequently. There's been some good behavioral research on behavioral treatments for young kids under the age of 12. So we're doing a study for kids who are CARD clients between the ages of 2 and 12 who've had 6 months or more of significant sleep issues. The ABA team with the BCBA supervisor trains the parents on how to implement the behavioral sleep treatment. And we've already started this study. There's going to be both an experimental and in a control group. All the control kids will later be offered the same behavioral sleep treatment. And we are just looking for more kids.
Okay. So, and I have to say too, you're doing an excellent job. There's a little bit of an echo, and I don't know if you've ever had to do that, where there's a little, you can hear yourself and there's a little bit of an echo. It's really an exercise in concentration, and Dr. Copeland's doing brilliantly.
I got a good night's sleep last night.
There you go. Well, and that's why you're doing so good. But so for Dr. Copeland, is it only CARD families that are participating in this study?
Yes, at this point. This is mainly for CARD's families. CARD will share the information with any family that's interested. But as far as conducting the study, being a subject in the study, yes, only CARD families.
So if you are a CARD parent and you want to participate in the study, what do you need to do to get involved, and what will you be doing once you are involved?
Okay. First, to be eligible, the child has to be between the ages of 2 and 12. They can't have any seizures or be on seizure medication because we know that affects sleep. And so they have to be in general good health. And their sleep problem has had to be going on for more than 6 months. Also, it's okay if they take melatonin, but to be in the study, they can't be on any other prescribed, sleep medication.
Okay. And part of that all, so that people understand, is that you're trying to isolate and see if behaviorally you can shape and change sleep habits and have it work better. Is that a pretty safe assumption?
Yes.
Okay. So, and not to say that CARD won't ever look at individuals who have epilepsy, or that, there are kids who have sleep issues in CARD that are being treated for that. It's just not a part of the study because they're isolating that.
Exactly. So, with your help, we made 2 training videos.
Yes.
One for parents, one for the behavior analysts at CARD on the behavioral sleep treatment. We will offer this for any family who's in CARD who has a child with a sleep problem. So the treatment still can be done. It just wouldn't be done within the context of the study. So if families are interested, they should tell their ABA supervisor, and that supervisor can get in touch with me or Dr. Emily Jean, Gean, one of our card therapists in Beaverton, Oregon, because she's co-directing the study with myself and Dr. Dixon.
Okay. And now you said your child has to be having a sleep issue that's been going on for 6 months or more. What kinds of things do you constitute a sleep issue?
One would be when the family tries to send the child to bed, they resist going to bed. They may have what are called curtain calls, where they're frequently up out of bed after you kiss them goodnight, so they have difficulty falling asleep. It could also involve children who then wake a lot in the middle of the night. Those kind of sleep problems.
Okay, great. I love calling it a curtain call. That's such a better name than what we want to call it, right? I don't know if you've ever seen Dr. Copeland or Nancy. There's a wonderful Jennifer Garner video where she reads a bedtime story, and it's only for adults. But she reads the bedtime story and it says, something, and then she says, now go to sleep. Yeah. And at the end of every line, I think. It's on YouTube and everybody can check it out. It's not something to share with your children, but it's a good laugh for the tired parent.
Yeah, I had a lot of curtain calls last night because we just got back from the East Coast and spent an entire day flying, and we were up at 5 a.m. East Coast time. So
that explains it.
Yeah. So, but I'm wondering how long this is going to last with the curtain calls.
Well, and now that we've talked about the fact that there's this study and we've given people the information, let's for everybody else who's like, my goodness, I don't get to be a part of the study. Let's get into it. So, Dr. Copeland, that you've been working on sleep for a while. Here's Nancy with her issue with her son getting up. How long is this going to last? And is there something Nancy can do to get him on a Pacific Time Coast schedule now?
Okay. The behavioral treatment we use has already been researched and published by Dr. Greg Hanley, and it involves good sleep hygiene from sleep medicine, plus some behavioral strategies. So one thing that you can do for the curtain calls is give your son a laminated bedtime pass,
right,
or several passes, and make sure whatever he's using the pass for to come out of bed for 2 to 3 minutes, that he has plenty of access to it even before the kiss goodnight, or what we call the bid goodnight. But as long as he has a pass, he can trade it in for one trip out or the parent coming in for 2 to 3 minutes. After he's used up all his bedtime passes, then you just redirect him back to bed without granting him what he wants. But as long as he uses the pass, he does get what he wants. That starts to put some control over the curtain calls.
Okay.
Some of the finer points of that are, though, as a parent, you have to be well rested enough to follow through with that.
Exactly. You can't give up. One of the problems I think a lot of parents have with the issue of their children that join them in their own bed is they're so exhausted that after a while they give up. Is that something you see quite a bit?
Yes, that's very, very common. And we get strongly learned associations with how we fall asleep. Sleep is a very natural and powerful reinforcer. So whatever the child learns to associate with falling asleep, they become very dependent on. And then they think they need that to fall asleep. So while the parent temporarily solves the problem by laying down next to their child, they're actually creating more of a problem long term, because it's what we call a dysfunctional sleep dependency. And those kinds of sleep dependencies can't necessarily be there all night long. If the child is used to laying next to the parent to fall asleep, it sets the stage for them waking up multiple times in the middle of the night, especially if the parent later goes back into their own bed, because the same conditions are not there all night long that child learn to fall asleep with.
And so when, sometimes we do this and we get to the point where it's already well established, and then we find out, oh, that wasn't the way to do it. How do you begin to unravel these associations that are dysfunctional?
Right. We have to help them unlearn those dysfunctional sleep dependencies and learn other habits. So in addition to the bedtime pass, there's a little technique called time-based visiting. And you can substitute it instead of the parent laying down next to the child. So after the first big good night, the parent, first night of behavioral treatment, revisits the child 8 times in 30 minutes. So what the child starts to learn is, I don't have to do anything. I just have to lay here and relax, and my parents are always going to come back. And that tends to work as a substitution for the parent actually laying down next to them.
And then over time, you pare those 8 visits down little by little?
Pretty quickly you can start weaning it down. And Dr. Hanley has a precise protocol on how to do that, and that's something we teach the parents how to do in our study.
Okay.
When you talk about...
And in the video.
Yes.
Okay, so the bedtime pass, we get that concept. When you talk about good sleep hygiene, what else is included in that, Dr. Copeland?
Having a good schedule. We are built to sleep in the dark, and we sleep better in cooler temperature. So you want to make sure that child's not being sent to bed too early. We also have a biological clock, and we all have a biological time of peak alertness in the early evening. You don't want to send a child to bed when they're at the height of their peak alertness, because that will trigger some sleep-resistant behaviors. So learning to know your child's biological clock and picking a good bedtime is part of it. And having good room conditions. There shouldn't be a lot of bright light. Little night light's okay, but you don't want any direct lighting right across the eyes. And for that reason, we also recommend stopping any kind of screen time like TV or iPad or computer time about 45 minutes before the desired bedtime. So lots of strategies like that, and we try to get all the strategies done all at once for that particular child's and family's needs.
And isn't it also that we don't let them sleep so late in the morning? I mean, I see this with my teenager now, that it's summer and all of his friends are sleeping till like 11 or noon.
Wow.
And I mean, that's a teenager thing to do.
Right.
And we're just not letting him do that, because I know if we do, it'll take us forever to get him back on a schedule. So not letting them sleep late in the morning, and that's part of it too, right?
Exactly. You want to make sure they get enough sleep, and the younger the child, they do tend to need more sleep. So a 4-year-old may easily need 11, 12 hours of sleep, or a little bit more. And even by the time we're a teenager adult, on average, most of us do better with about 9 hours of sleep. But we shouldn't regularly, routinely sleep a lot more than we really need.
What's your opinion on the napping? When do we know when to get rid of the nap, or should we keep the nap? I want a nap now.
Well, I think the older we get, Bob Hope used to take naps all the time, and he credited it for living long and having lots of energy. So there's something to be said for naps for adults, but it's individual for children. A lot of preschoolers may outgrow the need for a nap sometime between 3 and 4 years of age, and some still need it. But usually you don't want really prolonged naps, like 2 hours or more, if they're having trouble staying asleep at night.
Well, Jem used to nap like a champion.
Really?
And man, it was my best time of day because he would nap and I could actually get something done. But then he wouldn't go to sleep until 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, well, that's the downside of a
Yeah.
long nap.
Right.
And when we got rid of the nap,
Yeah.
when we got rid of the nap, he would go to bed earlier. But I can remember for a long time between the hours of 3:30 and 5, if I didn't have a brass band in the house, I mean, literally, we would get up and dance and do all, because if you let him sit down for a second, he would cork off and then you'd be up all night long.
Oh.
So we would have to plan an activity that did not involve being in the car from 3:30 to 5. If you put him in the car, it was lights out.
Mm-hmm.
And you couldn't wake him up for anything.
Yeah, an occasional 1 hour nap for younger kids, and some 2 and 3 year olds definitely need a 2 hour nap. But you want to avoid frequent and prolonged naps during the day. The older the child gets.
Okay. All right. So you had some questions about medication.
Yes, I wanted to know about some natural supplements and some of the more popular sleep aids, I guess we would call them. I know one is, of course, melatonin. And then there's another one called Tranquil Sleep that I've used with my son that has melatonin and tryptophan and maybe lysine or something. I don't know what else. I'm not sure what's in that one, but I know theanine. L-theanine. Sorry about that. So, Dr. Copeland, what is your opinion on some of these natural sleep aids?
The natural sleep aids are pretty good. They can be helpful. You don't want the child to become totally dependent on them because they tend to develop a tolerance. But our brain makes melatonin deep in the centers of our brain, and it's made to regulate our sleep cycle. So melatonin is good, and it gives a natural type of sleep. There's no other prescription medication, even though it may work to get the child to sleep, that gets a good quality of sleep. That's why it's better for children to treat the sleep difficulties with a behavioral approach instead of prescription sleep aids. But we do allow melatonin in the study because it does allow a good quality of sleep. And tryptophan does have a sedating property. It's related to the production of serotonin and then eventually melatonin. It's amino acid that occurs naturally in food. So it's an okay supplement too. And then L-theanine, another amino acid, does have calming properties. So those are the 3 that I think are the best quality.
Okay. Well, this is all very fascinating. We go back to if you're a card family, really want to, and you're having sleep issues, and if you qualify, if your child's between the ages of 2 and 12, and you're not on any other medication other than the melatonin, and you're not having seizures or on seizure medication, then you can qualify for the study. If you don't qualify for the study, you can still have the protocol for it. It is on videotape. We helped Dr. Copeland to videotape the protocol for you and for your supervisor. You just won't be included in the study. For our viewers who are not card parents, Dr. Copeland, is there a way that they can view the protocol?
I would think so. If the videos are on Vimeo, and maybe if they request them through you, Shannon, you could give them the website to watch the videos. Is that possible?
I can make that happen. So if you want to watch those videos, the ones for parents, write to me and I can make that happen. But I really appreciate you being with us today to talk about these things and the importance of it, because honestly, if we don't have sleep for the child, then we don't have it for the family, and then no one makes the progress that we could be making. I really feel like it's one of the most important gifts that we can give our child is the ability to go to sleep, even if we're not there, to sleep through the night, and we have to give that gift to ourselves or we lose our minds. Is that overstating it?
Yes.
Well, thank you. Yes?
I just want to mention this one last thing. We've shown in our skills profile some children who, after they improved their sleep, really picked up their rates of learning and skills with their ABA program.
Absolutely. And I know you're in the middle of a study, so you can't really say, but But can I say that these techniques have been shown time and time again to be very effective?
Yes, and they have been published in behavioral psychology journals by Dr. Hanley. Dr. Hanley is excited to work with CARD on our study because we're doing an experimental and a control group so we can publish it in medical journals and make more doctors aware of these behavioral techniques.
Which is great. And again, I want to say that if you're in the control group, you will eventually be given the behavioral intervention. And
We want to help everybody.
Yeah. A big part of this, as we said, though, is that you have to be able to follow through on it. And because you might be listening and going, yeah, well, the bedtime pass, I tried it. Or, we've done the curtain call thing before and it doesn't work. Or, we get to a point where I can't force them to do anything. And it is essential. A lot of times the first night, it's not going to work.
Right.
The first night it's not, and you have to have a plan to get through that first night and have no sleep so that the child sees, oh, they're not giving in. Oh, they're not going to talk to me when my bedtime passes are out. It's a drag the first night. But I can speak for myself, and we've done the bedtime pass thing here on the show for years and even offered the format for the laminated thing that people were doing the craft project themselves and doing it. And for us and for most people reported that really it took a maximum of 3 nights is what I recall before they saw a tremendous difference. And I know that you feel like I can't do without 3 nights of sleep, but if you could do without 3 nights of sleep to have it so that the rest of your life and your child's life you slept, you would gleefully trade it, right?
Right.
So do you find that too, that most people, that 3 is a pretty average number for it to work, Dr. Copeland?
Right. Most parents start to get excited because they start to see some progress by day 3.
There you go.
And the overall behavioral treatment doesn't usually take more than 1 month's time total to finish the whole program and have established much better sleep habits. There's also some strategies that Dr. Hanley incorporates right from the get-go to even try to make the first night easier. He has parents record the time the child actually fell asleep the night before you start the behavioral sleep treatment. And say the child didn't fall asleep till 11 p.m. The day you start, or the night you start the behavioral sleep treatment, you put them to bed an hour later. So at midnight, say, in this hypothetical example, because you want to get maximum motivation for sleep. So Dr. Hanley has fine-tuned a lot of strategies to make it as effective as possible.
Okay, so if you want that strategy, you want the video that Dr. Copeland did about that strategy from start to finish, because it's kind of on the long side, it's like an hour. Write to me, s.penrod@autism-live.com, and I can get you connected with that. But it does work, and man, is it worth it. It's so very worth it. Anything else?
I should mention, for those who are actually in the study, it won't be videotaping every night, but we ship a camera, had the ABA team bring a nighttime recording camera. We film some of the nights to get the data that we need for our study, but the ABA team would help the family with that filming.
Okay, spectacular. Thank you so much for addressing something that I know so many families have difficulties with, Dr. Copeland, and thank you. We miss you.
Shannon, and Autism Live for having us.
We miss you, and we need to work out some time to do this on a more regular basis because we miss you, and our viewers ask for you all the time and say, when is the unicorn coming back? So we'll have to find time for that.
Much.
All right,
Thank
you
you,
take
Dr.
care.
Copeland. Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That was Dr. Linda Copeland, and she is the unicorn.
Yeah. Now, did you do the token economy with Jim?
We did the bedtime pass, yes.
The bedtime pass.
Yes, we did, and it worked really quickly because he didn't want to do it. He was older, I think, than the typical kid.
So was Wyatt.
He was probably, I think when we did the bedtime pass, he was 10 or 11.
Right.
And he was like, this is a baby thing, I don't want to do it. And I said, well, these are the things. And we did it, and he saw how it worked, and he was like, I'd rather just stay in bed.
Yeah.
And then he did.
Right. I think I might have to reinstitute it because Wyatt came in last night several times.
Yeah.
And then ended up coming into my bed when I was dead asleep, and I woke up this morning and he was there.
Yeah.
So that happens from time to time.
And you know, the thing about it is, we did on the show, we had a format that was a bedtime pass, and you know, we showed you how to laminate it and whatever. It's somewhere on our YouTube channel. But then when I said to somebody that I said to Angela Persicki that, you know, he just didn't want to do it, so he just did what we asked him to do. And she said, you know, there's tons of ways of doing it for older kids. You know, she was saying you get a deck of cards,
right,
and you take out the 4 aces and you just give them, and they say, these are your hall passes. And they go to high school, they, you know, and junior high, they know what hall passes are. These are your hall passes. You have to turn it in to be able to get out of bed, and you have to give each one of them, so that, you know, she was like, you can make it suit kids that are older, because what you're just teaching them is boundaries.
Right.
You know, my boundary is you can come in and talk to me 4 times, and after that you don't get to talk to me.
Okay.
And that what that sets up is a terrible circumstance.
Yeah.
Where you're there and ignoring, and they will escalate.
Yes.
And you have to ignore that. And it's a drag. And I would say for those of you who are doing that kind of thing, you can't start that intervention until you have yourself rested. And that might mean that you have somebody else come and be with him during the afternoon, so you get to take a nap, and that you have somebody else come and spend the night to say, no, you know, mom's not available right now.
Right.
Like, and that's the length that you have to go to. Sometimes you got to call in backups. But when we're, and Samantha's telling me we got to go because we got to call out Alex Plank. But when you follow through with the intervention, and sometimes it takes Herculean effort, it works.
Right.
And that's what we have to get to sometimes, is first the mindset of, okay, what's it going to take? How do I put that in place? How do I get the support that I need? Because otherwise, it's like everything else. If you know, I can tell you every diet that didn't work.
Right.
Because I didn't do it.
Right.
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 But this works with our kids, but sometimes you got to have support. So,
Right.
in any case, do we want to just get Alex on the phone, or do you want to go to a break? We're going to go to a break. So we'll be right back. Hopefully, keep your fingers crossed for the Skype gods that we'll be able to talk to Alex Plank at the Autism Society of America. Stick with us.
Being part of this community is really important to a mom with a son like Jackson, because it really does take a village, and you need so much support, you know, to help bring out all of the amazing qualities and skills and talents that our children have. So I'm just very grateful to everybody who was a part of this.
I think it helps with all sorts of that self-esteem, social skills. They seem to communicate a little bit with each other, and they had a lot of friends. The helpers were phenomenal, and I think the social skills for sure, because they, you know, they worked together and they did a couple group things across the floor, and they sang songs together, and I yeah, for sure, I think it's a really huge deal. A great program.
What programs like this show is the person is in front of what we call today a disorder. I think what we're finding is that these sorts of brain challenges that make people unique can actually be gifts in ways we haven't discovered in the rest of society to bring them out. So when you see a program like this and you see the kids dancing, having fun, and making up jokes, making up the story. I was here when they did that. that was so amazing to watch because they were all focused, they were all present, they were all laughing, they were all getting into the creation of this story. And that to me sort of broke the barrier to say, no, first we're dealing with people and then we're dealing with the challenges.
Adults don't really believe kids. They'll think, kids are kids, what are they talking about? But when the child stands up for what they believe in, it's so strong and powerful. I first got involved with autism advocacy 4 years ago when my friend was diagnosed. When I found out about my friend's diagnosis, I didn't really understand what it meant. Matter to me or change our friendship. I didn't look at her any differently. We still had so much fun together. Now I know that she experiences life a little differently than me, and that's okay. Knowing what she goes through has helped me to understand and be more caring towards other people in similar situations. I got involved with ACT Today because I wanted to do whatever I could to help. They provide options like behavioral therapy, medical care, social skills programs, assistance to military families, and much more. Being there for my friend was my #1 priority. I've been volunteering and spreading the word about the cause via my social media platform because raising awareness is a crucial first step. There needs to be more kids and teens involved to make sure that our voices are heard just as loudly as the adults. You may be small like me, but your acts of kindness are not.
Welcome back. We are hoping that the Skype holds long enough, but we're going right now to Alex Plank live from the Autism Society of America conference. And we just lost him. We had him, we lost him. We're going to try to get him back on the line. He was there with Anita Lesko.
Tell us about Anita.
Anita is amazing. If you guys probably all know her as being one half of the autism marriage that happened at the Autism and Love conference, that she married the love of her life at the Autism and Love conference. And Anita is this amazing woman that she's an anesthetologist. An
anesthesiologist?
That's the word I'm looking for.
Here we've got Alex back.
Alex, you there?
I accidentally connected to the Wi-Fi and it disconnected me.
Oh, interesting. But we're live now, Alex. So we're introducing Alex Plank. He's on the floor of Autism Society of America conference. And I was just saying that you were with Anita. Is she there, Anita Lesko?
Yeah, she's right here.
Fabulous.
Oh, now we've got you. We can see both of you.
Yay! I love the hat, Anita. You look fabulous. So how's the conference, you guys?
It's great. We've been at the pre-conference. We're at this autistic, what is this called that we're doing right now?
People on the spectrum of autism panel.
And
so the people on the spectrum of autism panel.
And who's on the panel today?
Anita is.
Now, tomorrow I'm on the opening keynote panel. That's a different thing than this thing.
And what is the panel discussion centered on?
What is your panel about?
Tomorrow?
Yeah.
The panel is about quality of life. What quantitates a good quality of life as a person on the autism spectrum, how to get there, issues to deal with parents and how you feel about parents and their quality of life, having somebody who's on the spectrum. Connor is on the panel, myself, Darius Frazier, Scott Badish's son is on the panel, and I forget who the other folks are.
Well, and
it sounds like it's going to be great.
I would love to see that, and I think, Anita, you're probably one of the best people to be on that panel to talk about quality of life, because as far as I can see, you know, look, you've got love of your husband, and you've also got a great job, and you're successful at your job, and you've got friends. You know, how do you define quality of life?
I define best quality of life as being able to be independent, live independently, have a husband, you know, marriage, a career, and also being a full-time autism advocate also is a very highly important to me. That's to me, great quality of life, to have all those things. But it comes down to, at the end of the day, the feeling of peace, comfort, and security with my husband at home and quiet time, and just relax together and feel like, you know, I have somebody who's there for me all the time. That's a very important issue as well.
Well, and amazing. I'm sure it wasn't easy for you to be able to get that. We've only got a couple of minutes, but we're hoping that we're going to be able to Skype with you again tomorrow, Alex. I'm just wondering, as this conference starts, what's the single thing that you're looking forward to the most, each of you?
Well, other than Anita's panel, I'm really looking forward to John Elder Robeson. He's given a talk on Friday. He's doing some book signing stuff on Friday as well. It's going to be fantastic. And, you know, I'm very good friends with John, so we'll be hanging out here. Another cool thing is that the Asset Conference was great. Anita did a great job there, too. We're about to have a meeting to go over how that went. So that's been cool.
What is John Elder Robeson addressing?
He's addressing the whole conference. You know, he's going to be on the main stage giving the keynote, talking about his story. And I think, you know, as you know, John is not always predictable, so we'll see what he talks about.
And Anita, what are you looking forward to the most?
Just seeing all the different presentations. I'm also on doing 3 other presentations besides tomorrow morning's opening keynote thing. I'm on a fun panel tomorrow afternoon with Carrie Magro, Lindsay Nebaker, and Amy Gravino, with Stephen Shore as the moderator, talking about love, relationships, and marriage. That's going to be pretty exciting. I'm doing a presentation on Friday about what every parent needs to know before their autistic child gets anesthesia.
Oh, man, I want to be there for that.
Yeah, that's a very important one.
Saturday's last presentation is about when your autistic child, whether it's a teenager or adult, is afraid to get behind the wheel to learn to drive.
Wow, I want to be there for all of those, Anita. That's amazing. And that's just a sampling of some of the things that are happening. Now, if people are in Milwaukee, they can still get there. The conference is just starting.
Yeah, this is the pre-conference, so technically it doesn't start till tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah, I was amazed to see how many people were getting on planes last night and this morning to get there.
Do you have information on the conference?
Yeah, we saw Elaine Hall. She's been hanging out with us. We went out to barbecue last night with 24, 25 people, 26 people.
Amazing.
So,
well,
yeah.
I'm really missing being there with all of you. I hope next year that I can make it back to the conference again. But
how can people get in touch with the conference, and how can they find out more?
So if you go to Autism Society's homepage, which is autism-society.org, it has all the information about the conference that you can connect with it. And Alex, are we going to be able to Skype with you again during tomorrow's show?
What's that?
Are we going to be able to Skype with you again tomorrow?
Oh yeah, Skype back. I'll report live with John Robeson, John Elder. He's going to be here.
We would love that. All right. Well, you guys have a great time. Give our love to everybody and learn lots so that you can share it with us.
Okay.
You with the flashlight. I absolutely love you, Alex. All right. And Anita, we got to get you on the show proper sometime soon when you're not super busy.
We will do that.
All right.
Matt
Okay.
Astor
Bye-bye,
is
you
here, too.
guys.
I've been
Have a good
hanging out
time.
with Matt, so.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
I'll go introduce you. All right. Bye.
Bye-bye. Boy, it's one of those things where I made the tough decision. I went last year.
Yes, I remember
for the
you went
first
last year.
time, and it was really eye-opening. I love the conference. And it was one of those things, push come to shove this year. There were so many things that I wanted to be able to do, and I couldn't do this.
Right.
And be here to celebrate my 15th wedding anniversary with my husband,
Oh,
which I really need
and when
to
is
celebrate.
that day?
That is Saturday.
Okay.
And then on Sunday, my son and I are leaving, going on a tour of all of the Southwest states that CARD has offices and going and speaking at a lot of offices. We're going to be in Santa Fe, New Mexico. We're going to be in Dallas. We're going to be in Austin. We're in Corpus Christi. We're in San Antonio.
So you and Jem are doing this together?
Yes.
And what are you speaking about?
I'm doing two separate talks, one with therapists talking about the parent perspective and helping them to understand how important the work is and to know what it's like on our side when they're doing therapy, because some of it's hard.
Right.
And I want to make that relationship a better, stronger relationship. And then I do a talk with the parents, CARD parents, about my 10 tips for getting the most out of CARD and having to deal with how it can be a really rough thing. And there are a couple of places where we're doing talks that aren't for CARD parents, and it's just about the value of good ABA and how you get yourself through it. So I was going through we're in San Antonio, then we're in Phoenix, Chandler, and Scottsdale, Arizona.
That's a lot of traveling. You're going to have a good trip.
2 weeks.
Right.
But it meant I didn't get to go to the conference.
Now, do you want to talk about what's on the show tomorrow, or do you want to?
Well, tomorrow we're going to be centering on the conference for most of the show,
Okay.
although we're having Bonnie Yates on and we'll do our mindfulness moments, but we're going to be hoping that we have special guests from the conference tomorrow.
Okay,
So
good. We're out of
if
time.
you're
I
in the
believe.
Milwaukee area, I really encourage going because it is something you need to go to in your life. We're out of time, Samantha. Is that what you're telling me? My thing keeps popping up. All right. Until tomorrow, give your kiddos a hug from me.
And yourselves a hug from me. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye for now.